Hello everyone and welcome back to my Skillshop project series. So in today's video we are talking about the task 26 program, the product removal from the watch list. So in the last video, task 25, we have already built out the entire watchlist page. We covered the database table, the watchlist.php page, the hard buttons across the search pages and the product view page, and the watchlist process.php backend file. So we have also looked at the JavaScript that handles adding products to the watchlist with instant user interface feedback. But at the end of that video, I have specifically said that we'd leave one thing for today, and that's the product removal flow directly from the watchlist page itself. Now you might be thinking, didn't we already cover the removal in watchlist process.php file? Yes, the backend delete logic is already there. But what we didn't fully cover is what happens on the front-end side of the watchlist.php file. So when a removal happens, how the card disappears from the grid, how the item count updates, and how the page gracefully transitions to the empty state when the last item is removed. So that's exactly what we are focusing on today. We will go through every line of the removal related JavaScript in watchlist.php file in full detail, understand why each part is written the way it is, and see how it all connects back to the watchlist process.php file. So let's get into it. Before we dive into the new code, let me do a quick recap of what's already in place from task 25 so everything makes sense in context. So from watchlist process.php 5, we have already the toggle logic. When a post request comes in with a product ID, the server checks if that product is in the user's watchlist. If it is, it deletes it and responds with the JSON action removed. If it isn't in the watchlist yet, it will insert and respond with the action added. So now on the search pages and the product view page, we handle both the added and the removed actions, toggling and the hard button, color and the fill state. But on watchlist.php file, the situation is different. On the watchlist page, every product is already in the watchlist. There's no add action here. Every hard button click on this page is removal. So the front end needs to handle that specifically and remove the card from the grid, update the count and show the empty state if it's needed. So that's the full story of what we are building today. Okay, now in the watchlist.php file, let's start by looking at the hard button that's rendered on each product card in watchlist.php file. So let me point out the key details here. So in here, the class WLHard is a JavaScript hook. Every hard button across the project uses the same class name, which is what makes our event declaration pattern work consistently. So the data product ID stores the product's ID directly on the button element. When the JavaScript handles the click, it reads this attribute to know which product to send to the server. And then the SVG uses the fill current color. So this means the heart is always rendered as a solid filled heart on this page, unlike the search pages where the heart can be either filled or outlined. On the watchlist page, we only ever show filled hearts because every product here is already saved. The button has Z10, so it can sit above the product card's anchor link, so linking the heart doesn't accidentally navigate to the product page. Then after that, you have the hover scale 110 and the active scale 85 give a satisfying press animation. The button slightly grows on hover and shrinks on click. So now the parent article over here tag is actually important because it uses group relative background white 80. So in here also you can notice that we have used the data product ID over here. So this is what the JavaScript uses to find and remove the entire card from the DOM after a successful deletion. Now let's go through the JavaScript section line by line. So first, this entire script block is only injected if there are items in the watch list. If the page is loaded with 0 items, there is nothing to remove, so we don't need the script at all. And then we have the items count, which is initialized using PHP's count items variable, which is server-side rendered directly into the JavaScript. So if the user has 5 items, this becomes let items count, which is assigned to 5 in the browser, and then we will use this variable to track how many items remain as the removals happen. Next, after that, we have a function in here. The entire removal logic is wrapped in this function. So the first thing inside is getting a reference to the watchlist grid by its ID, watchlist grid. So for any reason, if the grid doesn't exist, which shouldn't happen since we are inside the count, which is greater than 0 check, but it's good defensive programming, so we will return early. Next, we have the event delegation in here. Here we will attach a single click listener to the grid container, not to each individual button. This is an event delegation. So when any element inside the grid is clicked, this handler fires. The async keyword means we can use await inside for the fetch call, and then the e.target in here means that it is the actual element that was clicked, and then it could be the button itself or the SVG inside it, or even the path element inside the SVG. So we will use the closest.wl heart to walk up to the DOM tree from the clicked element until it finds an ancestor with the class WL heart. So if the click wasn't on a heart button at all, for example, if the user clicked somewhere else on the card, the closest returns null, and then we exit early. So in here, first we have e.prevent default, which stops any default browser behavior, and the e.stop propagation means it prevents the click event from bubbling up to the parent element. Most importantly, it prevents the card anchor link from being triggered. Without this, clicking the heart button might stimulously navigate to the product page. So we will read the product ID from the button's data product ID attribute. If somehow it's missing, then we will exit from here. So this is another defensive check. After that, we will send the request. So here we will create a form data object and append it to the product ID to it. Then we will send it to the watchlist process.php file using the fetch API with a post method. So here we will await the response and passing it as JSON. The whole fetch is inside the try block. So if anything goes wrong, the network failure, network error, server error, JSON pass failure, it falls into the empty catch block and silently fails. The user interface stays unchanged, which is acceptable behavior for a non-critical feature like this. After that, we have the handling process. Here we will check two things, which is j.success, which must be true. The database operation must have succeeded. And the second is j.action, which must be removed. So this means that since on the watchlist page every item is already in the watchlist page, every click should result in removal. But checking j.action assigned to removed means it explicitly makes the code robust and clear about its intent. Then we will remove the card from the DOM. So this is the key line. Here we will use a query selector on the grid to find the article element whose data product ID matches the product we just removed. Then we will call the remove on it, which instantly removes it from the DOM. The card disappears from the page, then no reload, no flicker, just gone. So this is why we put the data product ID on both the button and the article. The button uses it to send the right ID to the server. The article uses it so the JavaScript can find and delete the right card from the grid. So after removing the card, we will decrement the items count one by one. So here we will update the text of the items count paragraph element at the top of the page. The ternary handles the pluralization, 1 skill saved for later was 3 skills saved for later. It's a small detail, but it makes the interface feel polished and alive. After that, we will handle the empty state. So in here, this is the most visually impactful part of the removal flow. So when the items count hits 0 after a removal, we will dynamically inject the empty state HTML to the grid section container. Let me break down what this empty state contains. There's a large rounded container with a dashed border giving it a soft, friendly look. Inside there's a large heart emoji in a gradient circle, a bold heading saying your watch list is empty, and a short descriptive paragraph and a browse queues button. So here you can notice that we are using the inner HTML to append the empty state to the section. So this means the section header with the title and the item count is still there at the top of the page. Only the grid itself is gone since all cards were removed, and the empty state appears below the header area. So this matches exactly what a user would see if they loaded the page with the 0 items from the server, so that the same empty state that's in the PHP else block, the experience is consistent whether the watchlist was empty on the page load or became empty through the removal. So then after that we have the catch block, which is intentionally empty with a dash, so which is a conventional way to say I know that there's a parameter here but I am not using it. It's a silent failure which is acceptable here, so we will close the event listener and then close the function and end the script. Okay, as you can see, I have logged in as a buyer in here, and now if I go to my watchlist page, you can see the saved skills in the grid. Now here every card has a filled red heart button in the right top corner. So when the buyer clicks the heart button on one of the cards, the event fires on the grid's listener closest WL heart. So this finds the button, and then the event default and the propagation prevent any navigation, and the product ID is read from the data product ID. Then the post request is sent to the watchlist process.php file with the product ID. Then the server validates the session, confirming the user is a logged in buyer. Then it checks the watchlist table and finds a row, and then it runs the delete query and responds with the success true action removed. And then in the step 4, back in the JavaScript, we confirm the J success is true, j.action is removed, then we will find the article card using the query selector with the matching data product ID, and then we will call the .remove function on it, and then the card disappears instantly from the grid. So for the step 5, the items count is decremented. The count text at the top of the page updates. So for example, here I have 2 skills saved for later. So if I click on this now, it shows me 1 skill saved for later. So if the items count hits 0, the empty state HTML will be injected into the page section. So here now you can see the message with your watch list is empty with a button to browse skills. So this entire flow from click to visual update happens in milliseconds with no page reload. From the buyer's perspective, it feels instant and smooth. And that wraps up the task 26. Here's a quick summary of what we covered today. Here we have programmed the complete product removal flow from the watchlist page using the event delegation from the grid container for efficient click handling, the fetch API with async await for seamless server communication, the DOM manipulation to instantly remove product cards without a page reload. Then I have used the dynamic item count updates with proper pluralization, then the empty state injection when the last item is removed from the watch list. So together with task 25, the watchlist feature is now fully complete from the database table to adding products across the site to viewing and removing them from the dedicated watchlist page. So in the next task, we will continue building out more features of the Skillshop project. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.